Hello everyone. In this class, we will discuss about The Order of Discourse by Michel Foucault. In Michel Foucault's 1971 lecture, The Order of Discourse, he investigates how discourse, the ways we speak, think, and write about the world, is tightly bound with power. For Foucault, discourse isn't just language or speech. It's a system of knowledge that determines what can be said, who can say it, and how it can be said. He emphasizes that knowledge is never neutral but is always influenced by power structures that control which voices are heard and what ideas are accepted as truth. So let's know what is discourse. For Foucault, discourse refers to not just language, but to the systems of knowledge that govern what can be said, how it can be said, and by whom. Discourse shapes the meaning of words and ideas by setting the framework through which knowledge is understood and communicated. For example, in medicine, discourse includes not only the language that doctors use but also the practices, institutions, and structures like hospitals that form the knowledge of what is considered healthy or sick. This system of medical discourse also shapes how we can think about health and illness. Discourse is tightly tied to power, and those who control discourse control how people understand reality. Discourse isn't just about communication, it's a tool used to create and maintain authority and knowledge. Second, the role of power in discourse. Foucault argues that power and knowledge are interconnected. It's not simply that power imposes knowledge, rather, power operates through knowledge. Institutions, such as schools or hospitals, don't just reflect knowledge, they produce and regulate it. The more knowledge a group controls, the more power they wield. For example, of power and knowledge working together. In the past, the church held power over ideas about morality, the body, and the soul. It determined what could be said about sin or salvation. Today, institutions like the medical system and the prison system shape how we understand mental illness or crime. These institutions define what is normal and what is abnormal, influencing how society views health, criminality, and behavior. In this sense, power does not only come from laws or direct control, it comes from shaping what knowledge is accepted as truth. Number 3. Discursive formations, the rules of discourse. Foucault explains that discourse is governed by rules and structures that regulate how knowledge is produced and who has the authority to speak. These rules determine what can be said. Some topics are open for discussion, while others are restricted or suppressed. Who can speak? Certain people, like doctors, politicians, or scholars, are given authority to speak on particular subjects, while others are excluded. When and how it can be said. There are accepted times, places, and formats for certain kinds of speech, and those who violate these norms are often silenced or marginalized. For example, in psychiatry, discourse is controlled by medical professionals who define what constitutes mental illness. Only psychiatrists have the authority to diagnose, classify, and treat mental health issues, meaning the psychiatric discourse controls how society understands the mind and behavior. Number 4. The silence in discourse. Foucault also emphasizes the importance of silence in discourse. Just as certain things are spoken in discourse, other things are deliberately left unsaid or marginalized. These silences are crucial because they help define the boundaries of what is considered acceptable to talk about. Some topics or perspectives are actively excluded from public discourse, like silencing and exclusion. That means women, for instance, have been historically excluded from many intellectual and social discourse, particularly in the realms of science and philosophy. Similarly, colonized peoples were often silenced in the discourse of their colonizers, with their voices erased or distorted. In this sense, silence plays an essential role in reinforcing power structures. What is not spoken about is just as significant as what it is. Number 5. The institutions of discourse, how it works. Foucault argues that institutions such as schools, prisons, hospitals, and government bodies play a central role in producing and regulating discourse. These institutions don't simply reflect knowledge, they actively construct it. Like schools create a structure of knowledge about history, science, and morality. They determine what gets taught, what knowledge is validated, and which topics are considered important or irrelevant. Prisons shape the discourse of crime and punishment by categorizing people as criminals and controlling how they are treated. Prisons influence how society thinks about law, order, and defiance. These institutions regulate discourse by deciding what can be said, by whom, and under what conditions. By controlling these structures, they control knowledge and ultimately social power. Number 6. The order of discourse. The concept of the order of discourse refers to the ways in which different discourses, systems of knowledge, are organized and regulated. Foucault emphasizes that this order is not natural or inevitable. It is constructed and maintained by those in power who control what can be said and who can speak. Control over discourse. The order of discourse helps determine which voices are amplified and which are silenced. For example, in the modern world, we see how dominant institutions like governments, corporations, and universities control knowledge productions and decide what counts as truth or fact. Another example we can bring here. The discourse of medicine today is shaped by doctors and scientists who are the authorities on what is considered healthy or sick. This allows them to define what is normal or pathological, giving them significant power in the realm of health. Number 7. The role of expert knowledge. Foucault discusses how modern societies have come to rely on experts, people with specialized knowledge in various fields like doctors, scientists, lawyers, and educators. These experts don't simply provide knowledge, they also regulate and structure knowledge, determining what is accepted as legitimate or valid. The expert's authority, for example, a psychiatrist has the authority to define what counts as mental illness and what treatments should be prescribed. This kind of expert knowledge gives professionals the power to shape how society understands mental health, education, crime, etc. Foucault is concerned that expert knowledge can become a form of a social control, as experts not only provide knowledge but also dictate what is true and regulate who has access to that knowledge. Finally, we come to the conclusion, the power of discourse. Foucault concludes by emphasizing that discourse is not just about communication, it is a tool of power. Those who control discourse also control knowledge, and by controlling knowledge, they shape how society functions. Discourse defines what is possible to say, think, and do. Like, the order of discourse is constructed through complex social, political, and institutional forces. Those in power decide what is true, who can speak, and what can be said. Another, silence is just as important as speech because it marks the limits of what is accepted in public discourse. Foucault's analysis challenges us to think critically about how knowledge is produced and regulated, and how power works through the control of discourse. So far, what we have discussed, let's recap the summary of key points. First, we discussed the discourse is a system of knowledge that shapes what can be said and who can speak about it. It governs how we understand the world. Second, power and knowledge are intertwined. Those who control discourse control knowledge and, by extension, society. Number 3. Discourses are regulated by rules that determine what can be said, who can speak, and under what conditions. Number 4. Silence is a key part of discourse. It marks what is excluded or marginalized from public conversation. Number 5. Institutions like schools, prisons, and hospitals help structure and maintain discourse by producing and regulating knowledge. Number 6. Expert knowledge is a form of power that shapes how we understand and engage with the world. Focus, the order of discourse, is a critical examination of how language, power, and knowledge are interconnected in society. It shows that discourse is not neutral but is structured in ways that reinforce social hierarchies, with those in power controlling what is said and how we understand the world. Thank you for listening.